In 2015, faced with an ever-growing number of migrants dying at the maritime borders of Europe, several non-governmental organizations began search and rescue operations in the central Mediterranean. Crossing the sea was becoming increasingly dangerous after the EU and its member states, in an effort to stem migration, had terminated the rescue operation known as Mare Nostrum and replaced it with the border control operation called Triton. In the absence of state-led rescue programs, NGOs played a life-saving role. Over Easter weekend 2016 alone, they rescued more than 9,000 people. However, since late 2016, prominent European politicians and press outlets have accused NGOs of colluding with smugglers in order to facilitate illegal entry of migrants to Europe. This campaign coincided with a wider attempt by Italian and EU politicians to prevent migrants from crossing at all costs. Judicial investigations against NGOs were launched in Sicily, and commissions of inquiry were established within the Italian parliament. None of them found any evidence of wrongdoing until, on the 2nd of August 2017, the motorboat Iuventa of the German NGO Jugendrettet was seized on the orders of the prosecutor of Trapani in Sicily. This happened just after Jugendrettet, together with other NGOs, had refused to sign a so-called Code of Conduct that the Italian government had tried to impose on NGOs to limit their rescue activities. The order of seizure contended that the Iuventa was being used to facilitate illegal migration by arranging the direct handover of migrants by smugglers and returning empty boats for reuse on 3 separate occasions. The first on the 10th of September 2016, and the second and third on the 18th of June 2017. In the aim of transparency, the NGO Jugendrettet has provided us with unprecedented access to their archival materials, including photographs and videos, the official ship logbook, and all recorded communications with the Maritime Rescue Coordination Center of the Italian Coast Guard, as well as with other vessels present in the area. We also analyzed audiovisual materials recorded by independent journalists who witnessed the contested episodes from another rescue NGO ship. All these materials have been analyzed through advanced spatial reconstruction techniques so as to create a dynamic model of the events. The first episode of alleged collusion took place on the 10th of September 2016, approximately 15 nautical miles from the Libyan coast. According to the prosecution, a boat coming from Libya approached the Iuventa to transfer migrants and then left again towards the Libyan coast with only 2 men on board. No elements other than this witness testimony have been provided as evidence of these grave allegations. The logbook of the Iuventa describes a hectic day of rescues, during which it assisted hundreds of passengers in collaboration with 5 other NGO-operated ships, as well as the Irish warship James Joyce, a Spanish military plane, and an Italian Navy helicopter. During the day, 3 different boats carrying migrants were taken alongside the Iuventa for disembarkation. Due to the timing of the events, the only boat that the prosecution's witnesses could have seen transferring migrants and then allegedly returning to Libya is the one referred to in Iuventa's logbook as Target Vessel 5, recognizable by a blue mark on its bow. In our analysis, we tracked this boat throughout the day to verify its whereabouts. The boat is first taken alongside the Iuventa for disembarkation at 10:29. It is then visible again in pictures taken at 13:36 and 14:20, while Irish Navy personnel are seen transferring passengers onto their ship from the Iuventa. At 15:50, the Iuventa crew moves target vessel 5 a few meters away from the Iuventa as part of another transshipment, this time to the Vos Hestia. The boat can be seen again at 15:59 and 16:14 in the background of the transshipment operation. According to Iuventa's logbook, the transshipment concludes at 17:48. At 18:26, target vessel 5 is seen being pulled away and then set on fire a few minutes later by the Iuventa crew. Frontex reports from that day confirmed that all 3 boats rescued by the Iuventa were ultimately sunk. Based on the evidence we have gathered for this episode, there are no indications of the alleged collusion, as the migrants' boats appear to have been destroyed and could not have been returned to Libya. The second case of alleged collusion occurred in the early morning of the 18th of June 2017. According to the Iuventa crew members we spoke to, this was again a normal day of frantic rescue, during which they contributed to the rescue of more than 500 passengers on 5 different vessels. This happened, as usual, under the full coordination of the Italian Coast Guard, which alerted the Iuventa to the presence of at least 1 boat in distress at 4:20 in the morning. For the Italian judiciary, however, the crew of the Iuventa was once again colluding with smugglers by returning 3 empty boats to Libya after tying them together. In this instance, the accusation is based not only on witness testimonies, but also on 3 photographs annotated by the Italian police and released on the day of the seizure, which have widely circulated in the press. In the first image, we see the Iuventa next to an empty boat marked with the letters KK, from which migrants had just been disembarked. In the second image, we see the same boat allegedly being towed back towards Libyan territorial waters by Iuventa's inflatable boat. The boat was used again a few days later to transport migrants towards Europe, as shown on the third image. We now offer a counter-analysis of the events and a refutation of these allegations. The exact position of the migrants' boat is provided at 4:41 by the Italian Coast Guard, which requests the Iuventa's intervention. 9 minutes later, the Iuventa confirms that it is proceeding towards the distressed boat. The next known position of the Iuventa is at 6:10, just a few minutes after visual contact is established with the migrants. In the area, another NGO rescue vessel is also present, the Vos Hestia, on board which are the prosecution's witnesses. According to Iuventa's mission log, at 5:44, 4 vessels are spotted on the horizon. 3 are wooden boats transporting migrants. The 4th is a Libyan Coast Guard vessel. 2 of the migrants' boats, target vessel B and target vessel C, appear in a photograph taken by the Iuventa crew at 5:53. At approximately the same time, the Iuventa deploys its rigid hull inflatable boat, or RIB, the Iuventa Rescue. The RIB proceeds to give life vests to the closest of the 3 boats, target vessel A. The scene is recorded by Iuventa Rescue's onboard camera. The Iuventa Rescue lightly pushes against the migrant's boat to maintain contact with it. This thrust makes target vessel A slowly rotate. The degree of rotation can be determined in relation to the least mobile objects in the frame. the cloud shapes in the sky. Meanwhile, the fixed video camera continuously records the horizon. This slow pan gradually builds a panorama around the rescue operation. The panorama functions as a visual radar. The relative distance of the different vessels from the lens is estimated by comparing their actual size with their pixel composition in the image. Using this technique, we determine the spatial layout of the scene and map the relation of the Iuventa rescue to the other boats visible on the horizon, target vessels B and C, the Iuventa, and the Vos Hestia. When the Iuventa rescue finishes distributing life vests to target vessel A, we can see that it still has its motor in place. Before leaving, the Iuventa crew reassures the passengers of target vessel A that they will soon be taken on board one of the NGO vessels. As per standard procedure, Iuventa Rescue then proceeds to collect and distribute life vests to target vessel B. At 6:30, while Iuventa Rescue is still loading life vests to be distributed, a crew member of the Iuventa takes a picture of a Libyan Coast Guard vessel from Marsa al-Dila port in Zawiya. It is seen removing the motor of target vessel B. Libyan Coast Guard units are known to have sold motors seized during interception missions. Shortly after, when the Iuventa Rescue leaves with the life vests towards target vessel B, the Libyan Coast Guard is seen moving towards target vessel A. At this moment, the video recorded on board the Iuventa Rescue stops. A photograph taken 20 minutes later shows target vessel A without a motor. During this time, Iuventa Rescue was assisting target vessel B. It is thus likely that it was the Libyan Coast Guard vessel that took the motors of target vessel A and B in order to return them to Libya. This evidence was never noted in the reconstruction by the Italian judiciary, which instead claimed that the Libyan Coast Guard had left the scene before the start of the rescue operation. At 7:02, the Iuventa Rescue is photographed towing target vessel B back to the Iuventa in order to disembark the rescued migrants. Lily, the Iuventa's smaller inflatable boat, provides man-overboard assistance by transporting an orange floating device. Further away is target vessel C, identifiable by the KK writing on its side. The Vos Hestia is also seen moving alongside the Iuventa. Meanwhile, the inflatable boats deployed by the Vos Hestia are bringing passengers of target vessel A on board. Around 7:19, passengers of target vessel B start to disembark onto the Iuventa. Iuventa Rescue and Lily assist this operation by pushing target vessel B against the side of the Iuventa. In the distance, target vessel C can be spotted empty, its passengers having been already transferred onto the Vos Hestia. A few minutes later, the Lily is seen leaving the scene in the direction of target vessel C. Target vessel C is the boat identified by the KK marking which, according to Italian authorities, had been towed by the Lily towards Libyan territorial waters. We obtained a short clip of a video shot by a Reuters journalist, which seems to be the source of the still image mobilized against the crew of the Iuventa. The clip was shot around 7:34, 14 minutes after the Lily was seen leaving the disembarkation scene. By analyzing wind direction recorded in meteorological data, we attempt to establish the camera's orientation and thus the direction of travel of the Lily. We first simulate the motion of the camera to remove the effect of a panning frame on the apparent movement of waves. Using a technique known as motion tracking, we can detect a diagonal left-to-right motion on the waves, suggesting that the Lily was towing perpendicularly to the direction of the wind. We simulate the wave movement and direction and orientate the whole scene such that north is at the top. Wind data from 8 in the morning on the 18th of June shows that the waves were traveling east to west in our area of interest. This analysis therefore suggests that what we see in the image used in the Italian order of seizure is in fact the Lily towing target vessel C in a northerly direction, that is, away from the Libyan coast, not towards it, as claimed by the Italian prosecutor. Further crucial evidence allowing us to corroborate this account of events is provided by the helmet camera of one of the Vos Hestia's rib operators. In a long time-lapse sequence, we follow the Vos Hestia rib as it travels back and forth to the Iuventa to transfer life vests and passengers, as instructed by the Italian Coast Guard. The GPS coordinates embedded in the camera's metadata allow us to precisely map the rib's movement. In this image, taken at 7:34, we can spot the Lily towing target vessel C. The timing of the photograph indicates that this is the same scene of towing discussed earlier, observed from a different angle. This confirms that the Lily was indeed bringing the empty boat towards the Iuventa and not returning it to the smugglers. GPS coordinates provide definite confirmation that target vessel C was moved 800 meters to the northwest of its initial position, or in other words, away from the Libyan coast. A few minutes later, we see the crew of the Iuventa marking the deck and side of the empty target vessel B with the code SAR 1806, as per standard operating procedure. Subsequently, as both Vos Hestia ribs move alongside the Iuventa to transfer the last passengers, the Lily starts moving the empty boats out of the way. The same scene is recorded also from the Vosthestia. First, in one of the journalist's photographs, then in the second photograph released by the prosecution, in which Vosthestia's ribs are erroneously identified as iuventa's. The two empty boats are towed approximately 190 meters away from the iuventa, just far enough so that they would not hinder the shuttling of the migrants. At 8:07, the Lily abandons the empty boats and returns to the iuventa. This is the last contact the iuventa crew had with any of these vessels. At the same time, an unidentified boat becomes visible a few hundred meters away from the abandoned vessels. Whereas the iuventa crew had, on other occasions, sank the empty boats, it did not do so in this instance because it rushed to assist another migrant's boat that had been spotted on the horizon. Iuventa Rescue was seen taking a bag of life vests on board and heading off at full speed towards this new target vessel. As soon as the transshipment ends, the iuventa also heads towards the new target vessel. Our reconstruction thus shows that the crew of the iuventa did not tow the empty boats towards Libya for reuse, but rather in the opposite direction, where it abandoned them at a safe distance of the rescue ships. The iuventa crew then had to leave in a rush in order to assist another migrant's boat, target vessel D. A few hours later, at 10:44, just after having rescued the passengers of target vessel D, the iuventa crew began another rescue operation just outside of Libyan territorial waters. According to the Italian judiciary, this was another instance of arranged delivery and the third episode of alleged collusion. This claim is based on what they contend to be a series of direct communications between the iuventa crew and the smugglers, none of which can be proven. While so-called engine fishers were indeed present on scene and did remove the migrant's motor at that point, they were never seen or heard communicating with any of the rescuers. A video recorded on board Iuventa Rescue documents the first phase of this last rescue operation. In it, we see Iuventa Rescue loading life vests and proceeding towards target vessel E, which had been spotted on the horizon about 45 minutes earlier. Also visible are two other NGO ships further away, the Vosthestia and Zefuchs. When the Iuventa Rescue reaches target vessel E, the RIB operator starts communicating with the migrants as per standard operating procedure. The engine fishers are already present on scene. we have enhanced the audio track to check whether there was any communication with them.
Okay, Miguel, start talking to them now. All stay seated. Everybody sit down. Sit down. Everybody sit down. Are we ready to go?
From the recordings, it appears that the RIB operator communicates exclusively with the migrants. First, he identifies an English-speaking passenger to act as intermediary. Then, he asks about the number of passengers on board.
Just how many children?
The engine fishers circle around the migrants' boat and leave the scene. Shortly thereafter, the onboard camera video stops. Photos taken by the Iuventa bridge camera allow us to reconstruct what happens next. The engine fishers are seen navigating towards the remains of target vessel D, a rubber boat that, being easier to sink, was punctured by the Iuventa crew as per standard operating procedure. This clearly shows that there was no intention on Iuventa's part to return empty boats for reuse. The engine fishers are seen returning empty-handed within proximity of the rescue 2 minutes later. In the meantime, Iuventa Rescue continues to distribute life vests. It is joined by the Zeefuchs rib and by the Lily, which remains in standby ready to help in case of man overboard. Vosthestia and Zeefuchs can be seen getting closer to the rescue scene. Shortly afterwards, Iuventa Rescue and the Zeefuchs rib start transferring passengers onto the Iuventa. As soon as both ribs leave, the engine fishers return to take the engine of target vessel E, as documented in a series of photographs taken by the Iuventa bridge camera. It is at this point, according to the Italian judiciary, that another brief conversation with the engine fishers occurred. This is denied by the Iuventa crew, who have continuously insisted that they did not communicate with the engine fishers. Footage recorded by an independent journalist on board the Vosthestia helps to corroborate this testimony. In it, we see the engine fishers leaving the scene as soon as Iuventa Rescue returns to continue the shuttling. In the media, much has been made of a hand gesture of one of the engine fishers. However, from the perspective of the Vosthestia, it is clear that he is in fact gesturing to the migrants, some of whom seem to respond. He does this after his boat leaves in the opposite direction of the incoming rescuers and with his back turned against them. It is well documented that engine fishers are regularly present during rescues, whether operated by NGOs or state actors. NGOs, however, have neither the means nor the mandate to inquire into their activities, and even less so to interfere with them, as this has proven dangerous even for state actors such as the Italian Coast Guard. None of the materials considered in this reconstruction contain evidence of any collusion or collaboration between the crew of the Iuventa and smuggling networks. The Iuventa's crew was not communicating with the engine fishers nor bringing vessels towards Libya for reuse, as is fallaciously claimed by the Italian judiciary. While these accusations begin with factual elements, they are then decontextualized and embedded in a narrative that is completely at odds with the sequence of events that transpires from the rest of the evidence. In this use, facts are not relied upon to establish a truthful account of events, but to construct factual lies. Beyond demonstrating the falsity of the accusations, the materials we have reviewed further show the Iuventa's crew's professionalism and commitment to saving lives at sea. More than 9 months after the seizure of the Iuventa, no charges have been pressed against its crew, and thus the accusations have remained unchallenged to this day. Despite the falsity of these claims, they have contributed to the climate of hostility against rescue NGOs, most of whom have been forced to suspend their activities. With less NGOs in operation, the EU-backed Libyan Coast Guard has had a free hand in intercepting migrants and pulling them back to Libya, where they face grave human rights violations. Limiting NGO rescue activities and stepping up the support to the Libyan Coast Guard are two dimensions of the same strategy aiming to prevent migrants from arriving on European shores. To this day, the Iuventa remains forcibly docked in the harbor of Trapani in Sicily, and many more lives continue to be lost to the sea.